Hello, I'm Kosuke. Thank you for watching this video. In this video, we will learn about ないです。ないです is used to make Japanese verbs negative. For example, 私は食べます means I eat or I will eat. Then how do you say I don't eat or I will not eat in Japanese? If you have already watched my earlier video, Japanese Grammar for Absolute Beginners Part 3, maybe you can say 私は食べません. If you still don't know ません, I recommend you to check out my previous video series named Japanese Grammar for Absolute Beginners from the description area of this YouTube video. Like we have learned in that video, 私は食べません means I don't eat or I will not eat. But there's another way to say it in Japanese. It is 私は食べないです. 食べません and 食べないです are almost the same. They are very similar. And I think most native Japanese speakers have never even thought about the difference between them. Both sound polite. But perhaps ません is a little bit more formal than ないです. And perhaps ないです sounds a little bit more casual and politer. But they are almost the same. You can choose whichever you like when you speak. So maybe you will wonder why you need to learn about ないです in this video. You already know ません and it seems enough, right? So why is ないです necessary to learn? Let me explain about it. In this chapter, let me explain why I made this video. Actually, my explanation in this chapter includes information that's a bit advanced, so you don't need to understand everything. But one reason why we will learn ないです in this video is that Japanese people often use ないです. Later, I will introduce you to an investigation that says ないです is used more than ありません in casual conversations. So even if you don't have to say ないです, at least you should understand that when they say it. But there is a more important reason why we will learn ないです in this video. This video is based on my previous video series Japanese Grammar for Absolute Beginners. In part 3 and part 4 of the series, we learned how to use Japanese verbs. However, we still haven't learned a very important thing about Japanese verbs. It is conjugation. Conjugation is a very complicated part of Japanese verbs, and in that video series we only learned mass form, like 歩きます、食べます、泳ぎます, and so on. They are mass form. So for now, we have only learned the mass form of Japanese verbs. But in that video series, we have learned negative sentences, interrogative sentences, and past tense sentences using Japanese verbs, right? Then, how did we make those kinds of sentences without conjugating the verbs at all? Let me explain why only knowing the mass form was enough in my previous video series just in case, even though it includes information that's a bit advanced. Do you think 歩きます is one word and 食べます is one word too? When Japanese people teach Japanese grammar to people from other countries, we often say ます is included in a verb. It means 歩きます is one word and 食べます is one word. We teach like this because it makes it simple to remember. However, when Japanese people learn Japanese grammar in junior high school, they are regarded as two words. It means ます is not a part of a verb. Like 歩き is a verb and ます is an auxiliary verb. Also, 食べ is a verb and ます is an auxiliary verb. Actually, it's not important for you whether 歩きます is one word or not. So you don't need to remember it. But what I want to say is, in my previous video series, verbs themselves were not conjugated. The auxiliary verb must was conjugated instead of them because Japanese auxiliary verbs can be conjugated. This is why we have never encountered the conjugation of Japanese verbs in my previous video series. In that video series, ます always followed verbs to make sentences polite, and ます was conjugated instead of verbs. It was like 歩きます、歩きません、歩きました、歩きませんでした. Like this, we conjugated ます instead of the verb. and the verb 歩き itself didn't change its form at all. Because must always follow the verb to make the sentence polite, then only using must form was enough. However, when we try to learn advanced grammars, understanding the conjugation of verbs is inevitable. And it's a very big obstacle for all Japanese beginners. So I want to explain about it as clearly as possible. In order to explain about the conjugation of Japanese verbs as simply as possible, I need to explain about ないです in this video. You have already learned how to use the must form of Japanese verbs. And in this video, we will learn about the ない form of Japanese verbs by learning how to use ないです. ない means not, so ない form is used to make a Japanese verb negative. And also, please let me inform you that the most difficult and important form of Japanese verbs is form named て form. We still won't learn て form in this video, but we will learn about て form soon in the future video. And て form is the most difficult and very important form of Japanese verbs. In order to learn the て form of Japanese verbs, we need to know about groups of Japanese verbs. All Japanese verbs are categorized in 3 groups. Those groups of verbs are categorized based on how to conjugate the verbs. So when we conjugate a Japanese verb, we need to know which group the verb is categorized in. If you remember which verbs are categorized in each group, the conjugation of Japanese verbs is not that difficult. And that is why I will teach you the ない form in this video. Because if you remember the ない form of each verb, there is a way to know the group of the verb. Actually, the ない form is a kind of special form because we can clearly know which group a verb is categorized in by knowing its ない form. So I will teach you the ない form of Japanese verbs in this video, and please remember the ない form of them. Remembering the ない form will help you to know which group the verb is categorized in, and knowing their group will help you to understand other forms in the future. So please try to remember the ない form of Japanese verbs in this video. And after watching this video, please try to use the grammar quiz in the Lingual Ninja website to check your memory. I put the link in the description area. Okay, I'm sorry my explanation was wrong. In this chapter, I will explain about ないです. But actually, I have already explained about it. As I have already said, ないです is very similar to ません. For example, this is a sentence that we have learned in my earlier video, Japanese Grammar for Absolute Beginners Part 3. 私は食べません. This means I don't eat or I will not eat. 私 means I. は is a topic marking particle meaning as for. 食べ is a verb meaning to eat, and ませ was originally ます, and ます was conjugated into ませ because another auxiliary verb ん is following it. ませ makes the sentence polite and ん means not. So this sentence means I don't eat. However, actually you don't need to care that ませ is an auxiliary verb or ん is another auxiliary verb. You don't need to care about it at all. Just remembering ません is enough for you to speak Japanese. Anyway, this is a sentence we have already learned. And in this case, we can simply replace ません with ないです. It will be 私は食べないです. 私は食べないです. This also means I don't eat or I will not eat. Their meanings are almost the same. ないです is also polite because です makes the sentence polite. Perhaps ません sounds a bit more formal and ないです sounds a little bit more casual and politer, so ないです is often used when we speak, but they are almost the same. I found a report of the research about the difference between ません and ないです. I put the link in the description area even though the report was written in Japanese. And the author of the report counted the frequency of the usage of ません and ないです in famous Japanese shows. In those TV shows, people speak casually. As a result of the research, the author said, verb ません was used 84 times, and verb ないです was used 254 times. It means ないです is used 3 times more frequently than ません in casual conversations. So perhaps you should use ないです in a casual conversation and use ません in a formal situation. But it's not mandatory because they are almost the same. Anyway, in this example, you can just change ません into ないです. You can just change 食べません into 食べないです. This is very easy, right? You just need to change ません into ないです if you want to use it. And that's all. So let's check another case that is a little bit more difficult. In my earlier video, Japanese Grammar for Absolute Beginners Part 3, we learned this sentence. 吉田さんは行きません. This means Mr. Yoshida doesn't go or Mr. Yoshida will not go. Yoshida-san means Mr. Yoshida or Ms. Yoshida. Wa is a topic marking particle literally meaning as for. 行きます means to go, and ません is a polite way to say not. So this sentence means Mr. Yoshida doesn't go or Mr. Yoshida will not go. So how do you think we should change this sentence in order to use ないです instead of ません? If we simply replace ません with ないです just like we did in the previous example, this sentence will be 吉田さんは行きないです. Do you think this sentence is okay? Actually, 行きないです doesn't mean not to go. 行きないです means not to leave. Because it sounds like the nai form of another Japanese verb. So it can mean to die. So perhaps this mistake can cause a kind of a bad misunderstanding. When we want to say not to go, we need to say 行かないです. 吉田さんは行かないです. We need to conjugate 行き into 行か. This conjugation is the key in this video, and it will also be a key of my future videos about Japanese verbs. Let me explain about it. Let's see the conjugations of the verbs we have learned in this video. 食べます、食べないです。行きます、行かないです。Regarding 食べます, we just need to replace ます with ないです. So 食べ doesn't need to be conjugated. On the other hand, regarding 行きます, 行き becomes 行か. The reason why their behaviors are different is because their groups are different. As I said, Japanese verbs have 3 groups. 食べます is one of Ichi-dan verbs, and 行きます is one of Go-dan verbs. 1 means 1, and 5 means 5, and 段 means step. So 1段 means 1 step, and 5段 means 5 steps. I'll explain about the detailed reason of their names later, but if you still don't know Japanese numbers like Ichi and Go, please use the vocabulary quizzes about Japanese numbers from the link in the description area of this video. By the way, Go-dan verbs are sometimes called Group 1, and Ichi-dan verbs are called Group 2. But from these names, Group 1 and Group 2, we cannot know what kind of verbs they are, right? So let me call them Ichi-dan verbs and Go-dan verbs because these names are indicating the behavior of their conjugation. Actually, conjugation of Ichi-dan verbs is always very easy because they don't have a complex conjugation. Ichi-dan means 1 step. It sounds easy, right? And conjugation of Go-dan verbs is a little bit more complex because Go-dan means 5 steps. But even Go-dan verbs have rules about their conjugation. It means that if you can judge if a verb is a Go-dan verb or not, you just need to follow the rule in order to conjugate it. And if you remember the nai form of each verb, you can judge if it is a Go-dan verb or not. So let's learn about each group. As I said, Japanese verbs have 3 groups. They are Ichi-dan verbs, Go-dan verbs, and irregular verbs. Irregular verbs? Please don't say that. I can hear your voice. Don't worry, because there are only 2 irregular verbs in Japanese. They are 来ます and します. Even though their conjugations are irregular, don't you think it's possible to remember them if there are only two verbs? There are only two irregular verbs in Japanese, so all other verbs are categorized in either Ichi-dan verbs or Godan verbs. It means there are a lot of Ichi-dan verbs and a lot of Godan verbs in Japanese. So I don't recommend you to remember their conjugation one by one. Conjugation of Ichi-dan verbs and Godan verbs are not irregular. It means their conjugations have rules. So remembering which groups they are categorized in and remembering the rules of the conjugation of each group are the key to learn the conjugation of Japanese verbs. To glance at the rules, let's compare the conjugations of the two verbs that we have already checked. You don't need to remember all of the conjugations now. Let's just glance at them for now. 食べない、食べます、食べる、食べれば、食べよう。You don't need to remember all of them now, but the point is that 食べ is not changed and the following words are simply put right after 食べ. On the other hand, let's check the case of 行きます。行かない、行きます、行く、行けば、行こう。Do you see why 行きます is called Godan verb? Please look at the red characters. The red characters are かきくけ and こ. If you have already learned Hiragana, you probably know かきくけこ. They are the 5 characters of the ka line in the Hiragana chart. If you still don't remember Hiragana chart, please check it from the link in the description area of this video. But all Godan verbs conjugate like this. In this case, it's the ka line, like かきくけこ. But sometimes they conjugate like さしすせそ立ちつてと何ぬねの and so on. The rule is that they conjugate within one line in the Hiragana chart. It doesn't sound that difficult, right? If you have already remembered the Hiragana chart, like aいうえおかきくけこ and さしすせそ, you can just conjugate verbs following that. So now, do you understand why remembering the group of each verb is the key to conjugate Japanese verbs? Ichi-dan verbs don't need to be conjugated, and Godan verbs need to be conjugated following the Hiragana chart. And there are only two irregular verbs. So if you can judge if they are Ichi-dan verbs or Godan verbs, you can know how you need to conjugate them almost automatically. And in order to know if they are Ichi-dan verbs or Godan verbs, remembering nai form is one good way. Since Godan verbs always follow the Hiragana chart, the last alphabet right before nai is always a. It's like 行かない. So when you want to judge if they are Godan verbs or not, you just need to check the last alphabet of nai form of them. If the last alphabet of nai form is a, they are always Godan verbs. On the other hand, the last character of Ichi-dan verbs is always I or E. For example, regarding 食べない, the alphabet right before nai is E, right? So this is an Ichi-dan verb. So what about 見ない? The alphabet right before nai is I, right? So we can know 見ます is also an Ichi-dan verb. Like this, if you know the nai form of a verb, you can know the group of the verb. And if you know the group of the verb, you can know how to conjugate it. So actually, you can choose whichever you like. It means remembering the nai form of each verb is one way, because if you remember the nai form of verbs, you can know their group. Or if you prefer remember their group directly, it's also okay. It means that whenever you encounter a new Japanese verb, you just remember its group directly. It's also okay if you prefer that. But in this video, let's practice trying to remember the nai form, because it will help you to remember their group. So now, let's check lists of verbs. This is a list of nai form of Ichi-dan verbs. They are JLPT N5 level verbs, and I will also use these verbs in my future videos, so let's remember them. As you can see, the alphabet right before nai is always I or E, like 教えないです、見ないです、見せないです、借りないです, and so on. By checking the alphabet right before nai, we can always know the group of the verb. Let's check the meaning of each verb. 教えます means to teach. 見ます means to see or to watch. 見せます means to show. 食べます means to eat. 開けます means to open something. 寝ます means to sleep. 借ります means to borrow. 起きます means to wake up. Remembering their meaning is an important thing, but also when you encounter new verbs, you need to do another thing. You need to do whichever you prefer, remembering their group or remembering their nai form. In this list, all verbs are Ichi-dan verbs. So if you can just remember that they are Ichi-dan verbs without any hint, it's also okay. Because you can make nai form of Ichi-dan verbs by simply replacing masu with nai. But just in case, let's try to remember their nai form in this video. And for you to remember polite ways to say them, we will remember them with desu. Because desu makes the sentence polite. So we say, ないです. Maybe saying them like a magic spell again and again will make you remember them. So let's say them together. Please repeat after me. 教えます、教えないです。教えないです。教えます、教えないです。Please don't be shy. Please say it loudly after me. If your mother comes into your room and say you are noisy, you can just tell her that your Japanese teacher made you do that. So please don't be shy and scream after me. 見ます、見ないです。見ます、見ないです。見せます、見せないです。見せます、見せないです。食べます、食べないです。食べます、食べないです。開けます、開けないです。開けます、開けないです。寝ます、寝ないです。寝ます、寝ないです。借ります、借りないです。借ります、借りないです。起きます、起きないです。起きます、起きないです。Okay, good. If you say it like a magic spell again and again, you will probably remember them. When I studied English, I did it. Like, go, went, gone, do, did, done, catch, caught, caught, come, came, come, get, got, gotten, like that. I said it like this over and over again to remember them. Regarding English, their conjugations are often irregular, right? In Japanese, there are only 2 irregular verbs, so most verbs follow the rules. Actually, rules of te form are a little bit complex, but at least they have rules. It means that once you remember the nai form of their group, you don't need to remember all conjugations of each verb respectively, because they have rules. So please don't lose hope. You can do it. And maybe my website will also help you to fix your memory. So please try the grammar test after watching this video until you get the perfect score. This is a list of the nai forms of kodan verbs. I will also use these verbs in my future videos, so let's remember them. As you can see, the alphabet right before nai is always A, like kakanai, nomanai, matanai, and so on. Let's check the meaning of each verb first. Kakimasu means to write. Nomimasu means to drink. Machimasu means to wait. Iimasu means to say or to tell. Kaerimasu means to go home. Shinimasu means to die. Yobimasu means to call, to summon, or to invite. Isogimasu means to hurry. 貸します means to lend. 読みます means to read. 行きます means to go. Even if you cannot remember all their meanings now, it's okay. You will remember them because you will encounter them in my grammar tests and future videos again and again, so please remember as many as possible now. So next, let's remember the ないform. Please repeat after me. 書きます、書かないです。書きます、書かないです。飲みます、飲まないです。飲みます、飲まないです。待ちます、待たないです。待ちます、待たないです。言います、言わないです。言います、言わないです。帰ります、帰らないです。帰ります、帰らないです。死にます、死なないです。死にます、死なないです。呼びます、呼ばないです。呼びます、呼ばないです。急ぎます、急がないです。急ぎます、急がないです。貸します、貸さないです。貸します、貸さないです。読みます、読まないです。読みます、読まないです。行きます、行かないです。行きます、行かないです。Okay, I hope you got used to saying them. Can you see that the E sound before ます is becoming A sound? Like 書きます、書かないです。飲みます、飲まないです。E sound before ます becomes A sound. That is because they are 五段 verbs. By the way, perhaps I had better explain another thing. It's about 言います and 言わないです。If we simply change I before ます into A, 言います will become 言わないです right? But it becomes 言わないです。Perhaps you wonder where this W had come from. Actually, it's related to the history of the Hiragana chart. In normal Hiragana chart, the wa line is like this. It's almost empty. It only has two characters, wa and wo. But old Japanese people use this kind of Hiragana chart. There are characters you have never seen, aren't there? I and ye are old characters, and they are not used anymore. So they're sometimes replaced with I and e because they have the same sound respectively. So when we think about conjugation of verbs, the wa line of the Hiragana chart is regarded like this. Wa, I, u, e, o. Wo is also regarded as o because wo is a special character today. The character wo is used only for a specific purpose. Now I am also making a video about the Japanese particle wo. So I will explain about it in the future video. But anyway, the character wo cannot be used in a normal word. That hiragana character can only be used as a particle. So the character o is used instead of it because their sound is similar. But you don't need to remember about wo and o for now because o is not used to make the nai form. You don't need to care about it in this video. We will encounter it again when we learn about other forms of verbs. So the point is, 言います is not a 五段 verb of the a line. 言います is a Godan verb of the は line. Even though い in 言います seems like the Hiragana character い in the あ line, it's actually the one in the は line. That's why 言います becomes 言わない instead of 言わない. I hope you get used to it by saying them like a magic spell. Like 言います、言わないです。言います、言わないです。But only saying them once or twice will probably not be enough to remember them perfectly. So I recommend you to take a screenshot of the screen and use the picture to review them. And when you have time, please say the mass form and nai form of each verb like a magic spell. If you want to say them after a native speaker's pronunciation, please watch this video again. And please use my grammar test to confirm your memory. By the way, this table includes irregular verbs, so let's check them next. As I have already said, there are only two irregular verbs in Japanese. They are 来ます and します. 来ます means to come and します means to do. And their nai form are 来ない and しない. 来ない seems irregular, right? しない doesn't sound so irregular for now because that pattern is the same as Ichi-dan verbs for now, but します is also an irregular verb. You will see that in the future. So we need to remember their conjugation respectively. Let's say them together in order to remember them. Please repeat after me. 来ます、来ないです。来ます、来ないです。します、しないです。します、しないです。Okay, did you say them loudly? These are the only Japanese irregular verbs. So I hope you can remember them. I'm sorry, I didn't show you a lot of example sentences in this video because there are many things I needed to explain. Because this is the first lesson about the conjugation of Japanese verbs. In this video, we just practiced the nai form of verbs together. So if you remember them, that's enough in this video. But in order to check your memory, let's check example sentences using nai form. 私は寝ます. This means I will sleep. Do you remember the nai form of 寝ます? If you want to think for a while, please pause this video and please think. So the nai form of 寝ます is 寝ないです. 寝ないです. Since it's not conjugated into なない, we can know that 寝ます is an Ichi-dan verb. And knowing the group will help you to know other forms of the verb in the future. Then, if we make this sentence negative, it will be 私は寝ないです. 私は寝ないです. This means I will not sleep. Please repeat after me just in case. 私は寝ないです. 私は寝ないです. Okay, of course, as we have learned in earlier videos, 私は寝ません is also okay. Their meanings are almost the same. Let's check the next example. 彼は飲みます. It means he drinks. Do you remember the nai form of 飲みます? If you want to think for a while, please pause this video and please think. So the nai form of 飲みます is 飲まないです. 飲まないです. Since it's conjugated into 飲まないです, we can know it's a Godan verb because the alphabet right before ない is A. And knowing it's a Godan verb will help you to remember other forms of it in the future. Then, if we make this sentence negative, it will be 彼は飲まないです. 彼は飲まないです. This means he doesn't drink. Please repeat after me just in case. 彼は飲まないです. 彼は飲まないです. Okay, of course, as we have learned in the earlier videos, 彼は飲みません is also okay. Their meanings are almost the same. So let's check the last example. 田中さんは来ます。It means Mr. Tanaka will come. Do you remember the night form of 来ます? If you want to think for a while, please pause this video and please think. So the night form of 来ます is 来ないです。来ないです。来ます and します are irregular verbs. So we need to remember their conjugations respectively. The night form of 来ます is 来ないです。来ないです。Then if we make this sentence negative, it will be 田中さんは来ないです。田中さんは来ないです。This means Mr. Tanaka will not come. Please repeat after me just in case. 田中さんは来ないです。田中さんは来ないです。Okay, of course, as we have learned in the earlier videos, 田中さんは来ません is also okay. Their meanings are almost the same. Okay, how was it? In this video, we learned about ないです and the ない form of Japanese verbs. If you remember the ない form of verbs, you can know their group and how to conjugate them. We will learn other forms of Japanese verbs in the future lessons, but those lessons will be based on today's lesson because we need to judge their group to conjugate them. So I hope you will remember today's lesson. So let's glance at what we have learned in this video. 1. Verb ないです is almost the same as verb ません. 2. When ないです follows a verb, the verb is sometimes conjugated. 3. There are 3 types of Japanese verbs. Ichi-dan verbs. The alphabet right before ないです is I or E. 5段 verbs. The alphabet right before ないです is A. Irregular verbs. 来ます、来ないです and します、しないです。These are what we learned in this video. Also, I want you to remember these verbs. These verbs are used in my future videos and the ない form is the key to understand other forms of verbs in the future. So please remember them and try the grammar quiz from the link in the description area of this video. I think I explained about a lot of things in this video. But actually, what I want you to remember in this video is these ない forms of verbs. So please try to remember them for your future study. Okay, I think I explained everything in this video. But just in case, let's say them together again because they are important. Please repeat after me. 教えます、教えないです。教えます、教えないです。見ます、見ないです。見ます、見ないです。見せます、見せないです。見せます、見せないです。食べます、食べないです。食べます、食べないです。開けます、開けないです。開けます、開けないです。寝ます、寝ないです。寝ます、寝ないです。借ります、借りないです。借ります、借りないです。起きます、起きないです。起きます、起きないです。書きます、書かないです。書きます、書かないです。 飲みます、飲まないです。飲みます、飲まないです。待ちます、待たないです。待ちます、待たないです。言います、言わないです。言います、言わないです。帰ります、帰らないです。帰ります、帰らないです。死にます、死なないです。死にます、死なないです。呼びます、呼ばないです。呼びます、呼ばないです。急ぎます、急がないです。急ぎます、急がないです。貸します、貸さないです。貸します、貸さないです。読みます、読まないです。読みます、読まないです。行きます、行かないです。行きます、行かないです。来ます、来ないです。来ます、来ないです。します、しないです。します、しないです。Okay, I hope this video will help you to study Japanese. Thank you for watching this video. Bye bye.